The loudest, the biggest, the brashest. New York is its own character in every play.
The bad thing about New York is the pressure. You're always under pressure.
Here are the stories about those plays. It's New York Accent with Damon Amendolara.
Welcome to New York Accent, everybody. I'm DA, Damon Amendolara, in conjunction with WFAN, the flagship home of the New York Yankees. It is our great pleasure to welcome in a man who has his number retired in Monument Park by the New York Yankees. He's got a monument, of course, as well. He was a four-time World Series champion. And talk about a wonderful balance in your life. 16 seasons as a multi-time All-Star in baseball and a musician of great acclaim, a Latin Grammy nominee as well, an acclaimed guitarist. Joining us here on the show is the great Bernie Williams. Bernie, how you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you guys for having me on the show. This is a great honor.
My pleasure. So let's go back to the beginning when you're growing up in Puerto Rico. I read this anecdote that you had played Little League against two other future All-Stars, Juan Gonzalez and Pudge Rodriguez. That seems like an insane amount of talent on one Little League or youth baseball field in Puerto Rico. Is that true?
Well, half of it is true. I did play with Juan Gonzalez for, I think, probably the better part of 2 years. Actually, interestingly enough, the league, the level that we were playing at of 15, 16-year-old kids, that division was called the Mickey Mantle division. Wow. He was playing right field and I was playing center field in that team. And that was basically the team that I got chosen from by the scout of the Yankees, a fellow by the name of Mariano Rivera. He passed, about 10, 15 years ago. But that was his, I was one of his big signings. And Juan Gonzalez was on the same team and he ended up signing with the Rangers, I think a couple of months after that, after I got signed. Pudge was a little bit younger than us. So I don't think we ended up playing together, obviously later with the Rangers. But I think my tenure in the Little Leagues sort of was a little bit before his time. So I never got to play with him.
What is that transition like when you're growing up in Latin America and you may not speak the language and then you come to the States and you have to try to acclimate to it? For all you guys that had great success, there's so many players that don't have that success. How difficult is that transition?
I think it's very difficult. I think culturally is a challenge. Obviously, it depends in great lengths to your, how well do you speak the language? Coming from a Spanish-speaking culture, going into, a completely different setup. Also, the time that you sign, if you sign as a 17, 18-year-old kid, and I want to stress that you are a kid and you are being treated like an adult. You have to have, you got to have adult responsibilities. And to me, the easiest part of the game was actually playing those games. The hardest part was to acclimate to a different culture, different language, and just living like an adult, a very adult setting, at the time that you are still growing up and trying to find out who you are as a person.
When you finally make it to the bigs, you had mentioned playing in the Mickey Mantle division, Mickey Mantle League growing up. When you finally make it to the bigs and you were wearing pinstripes at Yankee Stadium and you're playing center field where Joe DiMaggio and Mickey Mantle once did, and you just said, you're a kid from Puerto Rico, how overwhelming is it? How intimidating is that?
It was really intimidating, but not for those reasons. I hardly knew anything about Mickey Mantle or Joe DiMaggio for that matter. I was just happy to make it to the big leagues. And that, in that sense, it was actually easier for me or, a lot better for me not to know those names because I would have been too overwhelmed. We were actually in a position at the beginning of the 90s, 1991, 1992, where I made it into the big leagues. And the team, chose to sort of give a lot of time to marketing the teams, using the older guys, the tradition and all those comments about Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth and Joe DiMaggio and Mickey Mantle. Those were the people that were marketing the team through. And I was like, young players, and I was like a young whippersnapper trying to make my way into the team. And it's like, why are they talking about all those guys? But obviously, ignorance is bliss. And as you are, growing into the team, as I was growing into the team, the years when, about 5-6 years into my career, I started really understanding what was that whole thing about, about mentioning all these guys that have a great legacy and a great part of the history of this team. And I started feeling proud. I said, oh man, I am part of something that is way bigger than myself, but I'm in a position that I can contribute to the history of this club. And once we started playing in the mid to late 90s, with the teams that Buck Showalter managed, in 1995, and then Joe Torre came in 1996, and all of that legacy. I feel very proud of the accomplishments of those teams, and where I was a big part of that.
When you were younger, I read a story that Mel Hall was particularly hard on you, and this was back in the days of rookie hazing. How difficult was that hazing that you took from him, and does it make you think back to how silly rookie hazing is and why they kind of got rid of it nowadays?
Well, I think it is, and in a way it isn't, because I think you have to develop this sort of tough skin, especially when you're playing in New York City. I mean, Mel Hall was the least of my problems playing in New York and being able to, establish myself as a Major League Baseball player. You come into the team thinking that everybody has your best interest, and you got this tough love. And some people say, well, if we don't, give you a hard time, that means that we don't care about you and you can do whatever, and we don't care about what you do. But the reality is that you come into the situation as a wide-eyed, very impressionable young kid, thinking that everybody has your best interest and everybody wants you to do well. And the reality of the situation is that you are competing with them, for their job, for their livelihood. And it is a competition, and it's the best player remains in the team. And they, in a way, want to make everything to, make sure that they have a spot on the team as well. So even though it's a club thing and everybody has a common goal, like winning, there is an internal sense of competing for a job and being the best player for the position. So you can establish yourself and start, living and getting your tenure established as a big leaguer. So in hindsight, I understand completely, what was that all about. But as a young player, you get sort of confused and kind of like distracted by those things. But the hazing is, what doesn't kill you, it can only make you stronger. And it was definitely a great experience for me to go through. Playing in New York and knowing how difficult it is to play in this great city.
Well, at this time as well, there's rumors that George wants to trade you, that he thinks that there's a way to improve the team right away. You're a young player. He wants an established veteran. He wants to win right away. How much did that distract you or wear on you? Because of all of those reasons you mentioned, you're playing in New York, you're young, you're not from the United States. You're dealing with veterans that look at you as competition, and ownership might want to trade you. Those trade rumors must have been really difficult to navigate.
Well, I think, if I would have been listening to them, it would have been really difficult to kind of play with that kind of pressure. But I always believed that if I could take care of my business on the field, everything else would have, sort of fallen into place. And of course, knowing Mr. George Steinbrenner, and his, traditionally very limited patience with especially with young players. And it did not happen with me. It happened with Bobby Meacham and everybody that came before me. We have a very short leash, when he was obviously making decisions about, the team. And I think, a lot of situations came that I was kind of lucky to be in a position where, he sort of took a little bit of a sabbatical from the team. And I think in the years that, the whole thing with Dave Winfield and all of those situations kind of separated him from the team. And that sort of opened the door for people that kind of knew what they had in the minor leagues, give us an opportunity to actually play through our struggles and give us an opportunity to establish ourselves as part of the team. And I think he kind of understood once that process was, kind of coming to fruition, that it was probably in the best interest of the team to give these guys an opportunity to see what they could do before they would think about trading them. So that opened the door for Hensley Mullins and, Kevin Moss and Andy Stankiewicz and Oscar Asokar and all those guys that Jim Leyritz and Pat Kelly and all those people that came before me that sort of paved the way for people like myself to being given an opportunity to play and show what we could do before being thought about being traded. And even when I was there in the early 90s, they were still trying to come up with things. So it was incumbent upon me to do the work and to play and to put some numbers up so I could become indispensable for the team, and they will have an opportunity to say, hey, we cannot make this team work without this person, so we better keep him. And I always had that attitude. Hey, it's not about them not liking me. It's about me making them like me for what I did on the field. And I was very fortunate to being in that situation at that time.
You played for both Buck Showalter and Jorde Torre, two managers that have had a lot of success, but two totally different styles. What was the difference between Buck and Joe as managers?
Well, I think Buck had something to prove. They both have something to prove, but in different ways. I think the opportunity that Buck had with the Yankees came from a team that was given a person that never really had any experience managing in the big leagues. And I think he needed to have this connection with the veteran players that he was managing. And obviously he had a great sense of what he had in the minor leagues. So that combination worked in many ways. I think he was more of he wanted to have control of every aspect of the team, the preparation and everything that came, with the team. It was more of a sort of a military sort of kind of experience where everything had, a reason to be, and he was very, very strict as far as time. And we remember having 2, sessions a day, and it was a lot. I think, as far as the preparation, I think it was a lot more involved. Jode Torre, on the other hand, had an extensive career in the big leagues, being a most valuable player one year. He had a great rapport with the press. But even then, when he became the manager of the New York Yankees, even though he managed the Mets before, I think he felt like he had something to prove because he never really was considered a manager, a winning manager. He always had losing records in all the teams, most of the teams that he played for. And he said it, I never really had the talent that I had, when I was managing the Yankees. But he's, his approach was very different. He only had 2 rules. Hey, you play your rear end off and you'll be here on time. And if you do those 2 things, I'll go through the ringer for you. And he did it many times, saved, he probably let me play 2 or 3 more years in my career with the Yankees when everybody wanted to sort of trade me or, kind of do, something different with me. He was very loyal and he, very loyal to his players. And he is definitely one of my favorite people in baseball. And we still remain very good friends.
You had a great postseason in 1996, and at that point in time, nearly 20 years separated the Yankees from World Series championships was a long time. Take me back to the postseason 96 and Game 6 at Yankee Stadium and Charlie Hayes catching the ball. What is that moment like to finally bring a World Series championship back to the Bronx?
It was an amazing moment. I still remember the stadium literally shaking. The upper deck, the energy, the electricity in the air, Wade Boggs riding a horse in the middle of the field, running around, the stadium, just elated. And being able to give that championship to the city of New York at that point, where, it was a long time, and everything that they remember as a winning team were the 77, 78 Yankees of Ron Guidry and Reggie Jackson and Thurman Munson and Willie Randolph. And that was, basically a generation of players, and we came, kind of like as heavy underdogs, playing one of the best rotations in the history of the game, arguably, with the Braves, when Smoltz and Greg Maddux and, all those guys. And coming in Andrew Jones, just basically just playing great against us. Remember Joe Torre's comment to Mr. Steinbrenner after we lost the first game. He said, well, we may probably lose the second game because I don't think, we feel as well. I think we still have ways to find our way in this postseason, but we're going to go out there, we're going to sweep them, and then we're going to finish the job here in New York. And remember George Steinbrenner looking at Joe Torre like, he had two heads, but we did it. And that was, one of the many examples on how Joe Torre believed in the team and believed on the work that we had done from spring training and coming all of it through to fruition and at the end of that season. And that started, the whole dynasty of the 90s. I think 97 was definitely a fluke because we won in 98, 99, and 2000. And we were one out away from winning in 2001. And we went back in 2003. So it was a great beginning to, a great tenure on the history of the club, and just proud to be part of those guys.
That core that you guys had coming through the minors, and then part of all those championships, yourself, Jeter, Petitte, Posada, Mariano, obviously a very tight bond. What is that relationship like between you and those guys that went through all the wars together and won all the rings together?
It was a great relationship. I think, probably one of the best relationships that I've ever seen. But I think in that particular instance, I have to give the front office probably the best credit, because they were the one that were spending the money trying to keep us together. As we became free agents and had an opportunity to explore what opportunities we had on other teams, they were the ones that said, okay, we're going to offer you the best deal so we can stay here and we can remain a tight unit. And, when I became a free agent, they signed me back. When, there was an opportunity to bring people that would sort of round up, that core of players, they spare no expense to bring, a Mike Mussina, a David Cohn, Tim Raines, Chili Davis, all those guys. So, the team was good because we had a good core. But the front office did their job, spending the money wisely, and surrounding us to the best players that they could find, so they can complement those teams in all those years. We have Scott Brocious being the most valuable player in 1998, and he was hitting ninth. So it was just a great experience to be part of those teams, and the scouting. People that were, doing their job, the front office and all these guys spending the money trying to keep us together. I think that was a great team effort, in so many different levels.
Your career was so accomplished and so decorated, and yet early on there were people that thought, man, I don't know if he's got the alpha in him, the dog in him to be a great success. Did it ever bother you that people questioned whether you were too mild-mannered to be a great athlete?
No, it didn't. I think it was just a great asset to have because there was always a fire burning inside of me. I just never let people never show it. And I think that to me, that was probably one of the best things that I ever had, trying not to show a lot of emotion and staying level-headed. And that was the only way that I knew how to play. My parents raised me to be a nice person. So when you come into a situation, especially in New York, especially in a sort of a kind of a dogfight situation, most of the time people misunderstand niceness for weakness. So that was kind of like the impression that they had of me. but it just took a little bit of time for me to really make them understand that I was a nice person, but by any means I was weak. And I think, career kind of showed that every time I stepped on the field, I gave 100%, and I showed the the intensity, controlled intensity, because you don't want to be out of control there. And but the way that I played was one that was very intense internally, and I took things very seriously, very personal. Striking out was a no for me. Making a mistake on the field, and I really took my defense very seriously. But I didn't think, it was going to be, it was going to do any good to, throw bats or, being thrown out of games. And I think, I really made an attempt to let my playing do the talking, as opposed to showing a lot of unnecessary emotion.
Well, your reputation is so sterling. You were known as class and a gentleman. You carried yourself with dignity, but also were a competitor. You were a 5-time All-Star, a 4-time Gold Glove winner, a crucial part of a championship 4 different times. So you kind of balanced both worlds. And then after your career, you really became such an accomplished guitarist. And we saw it play out in public, where you lost your dad to lung disease. And through music, you have been an advocate for awareness and education when it comes to lung disease. The website is Tune Into Lung Health as a website for more information. But tell me how music became a gateway for you to help awareness for how you lost your father.
Well, music was always has always been a very important part of my life. I credit my parents. My mom, she was the educator. She was the one that wanted to make me and my brother well-rounded. So she, exposed us to arts, music, and sports as part of a well-rounded education. And then my dad, that was kind of like the complement to all that. He was the one that was the wild card, the wild at heart. To say take chances. And he was the one that really started playing the guitar. He brought one from his travels all over the world. And I started listening to him playing. And he was the one that taught me my first couple of chords. And from that moment on, it became really a great love affair with music at a time where I was trying to make sense of the world. So it was just a great, it was a fortuitous thing that I had music in my life where I could make sense of all of the things that were happening in my world, and trying to be a successful person, finding out who I really am and who I really was at the time, and just really turning to music to make to answer all those questions, all about, timing, all about hard work, all about discipline, commitment. All of those things were really great things that my dad instilled in me through music and through sports, as well, but mostly music. And I took all that advice and that experience, and it was basically the basis of my training as a baseball player, knowing how hard it was for me to learn an instrument, and having the experience to go through all that, knowing that it requires a lot of work. It requires you commit. It requires to, deal with adversity, go through mistakes and dusting yourself off and going back in the horse, all those things I learned through music. And it was just so fitting that I was able to use music as well to form this relationship with, what he had and what he suffered from, idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. It's just one of the most common forms of interstitial lung disease. And it was devastating to see him, pass, in that matter. It was just crazy to see him and for him to go through what he went through. So I, in my experience, I didn't want any other families to go through what I went through. He was misdiagnosed for 5 years until somebody really got the right diagnosis. And by that time, there was not a lot that they could do for him. So I teamed up with Boehringer Ingelheim to go to form this campaign called Tune Into Lung Health. And that campaign is designed to raise awareness about interstitial lung disease. And go into tuningtolunghealth.com. You can get a lot of information about that. And we are trying to utilize music as a coping mechanism to deal with the sense of depression, the sense of the physical fatigue. You get breathing exercises that help you with these conditions. So it's very encouraging to go into that website and know that you're not alone. You have a support system of people that are going or are involved in the same process that you are. So I'm encouraging a lot of people everybody to go into Tuning to Lung Health. You also have like a playlist of some of my favorite tunes, which is obviously a great thing to have. But it is one of the things that I am doing in my life that really is very rewarding. I know my dad is looking down, saying, hopefully he's proud of what I'm doing. But it all came down to help people with this condition and not having people to go through what I went through with my family when he was misdiagnosed and eventually had the diagnosis of pulmonary fibrosis, this interstitial lung disease, group of diseases that my dad was suffering from one of them.
So for those that could be suffering from lung disease, but also those that could be suffering from mental health, music, breathing, two very huge keys to helping keep yourself and your mind right and healthy. Those seem so easy, but they're so valuable, aren't they?
Yes. I mean, you take breathing for granted. You don't even think about, when you take a breath of air, you do it, sometimes unconsciously. But when you have an interstitial lung disease, every single breath that you take, you put so much value in it because you never know when you're going to take your last breath. And the power of music, the healing power of music, not only for the patients, but for the people that are, taking care of these patients, it's a great value. So it's a great combination. And I am very happy to have that, be part of that, having that available for people that are suffering from these conditions.
Tune to Lung Health is the website.
Tune into lunghealth.com. Yes.
tuneintolunghealth.com is the website. It's got all this great information. As Bernie said, it's got website, it's got playlists, it's got a great information for those that want to find out more about that, for a family member, breathing exercises, all of that. It's a wonderful website and a catch-all for people that have questions and want to read up more on it. Bernie Williams is a 5-time All-Star, a 4-time Gold Glove winner. Number 51 is retired, a monument in Monument Park, an acclaimed guitarist as well, and a 4-time World Series champion. He joins us here on New York Accent. You can subscribe to this playlist to get more conversations like this through WFAN's YouTube channel and on the podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review to New York Accent. Bernie, this was so much fun. Thanks so much. Burn, baby, burn. And you're doing wonderful work with a lot of people that really could use your help and assistance. So I know that your dad's looking down, smiling right now. Thank you so much for the time today.
I appreciate it. An honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy New York Accent, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more episodes like this one. Also, if you want to watch more episodes of New York Accent, check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you for the next episode of New York Accent.